when we were born, we come into the world, we come from being fully at home and feeling that release that comes. We have a little shadow of it when we come home at the end of the day, those of you that have a home, and put your feet up or relax or have a cup of tea or whatever that is, the feeling of coming home or coming to a safe space or feeling back at peace with one. And when we get separated from that, that separation is created by the mind. It is the root of suffering. The Buddha keeps pointing out the clinging of the mind to things which separate one from all of it. Now, once that separation has occurred, there is incredible pain. You can call it being thrown out of the Garden of Eden, you can call it original sin, whatever you want to call it, different metaphors within different systems. But there is incredible pain, and in some profound way, all of our actions henceforth are an attempt to return to that, coming back into the one. And we develop a whole set of techniques that we say make us feel good, give us a feeling to the moment of, yeah. And some of those give us that moment so intensely, and the rest of our life is so much pain of our separateness and so devoid of that feeling, that once we find one of those things, it could be any number of things, that when that occurs and it works, it reinforces the behavior, and you start to do that behavior more and more because it feels good. It takes away the pain of the separateness. And the use of drugs, the use of material possessions, the use of relationships, all of it, when you get busy and get obsessed with relationships and wanting to get closer and closer to somebody, it is trying to get to the place where you come back into that oneness. It's that yearning, and you can feel it permeate the universe of people's consciousness. So when you look at addictions from that point of view, you see that it's not like evil. It's just an attempt to get back. The problem is that most behaviors that get you back is like Maharaj said about drugs. He said it will allow you to be in the presence of Christ, but you can only stay 2 hours. So it would be better to become Christ than visit him. And that's what you find out with most addictive things, that they give you a short rush, but they don't allow you to remain at home. They just allow you the taste of it. And then the minute you get thrown out, you go back to heaven, but you can't stay because you didn't come in the right way. You end up feeling like I did something wrong, I'm bad. And then that starts a reaction of mind, so that you come down, then you feel guilt, I must be bad, I should have done something else. Why didn't I do the practices that would have allowed me to stay there rather than the thing that's short term? Because you see your predicament. What happens is that the opportunity for the immediate gratification, it's like what's called in psychology, the choice of the little candy bar now or the big candy bar later. With little children, they'll always grab for the little candy bar now because they want what they can get now. They don't have any delay of gratification. And spiritual practices compared to having effects or compared to taking Coke or something is more like delayed gratification versus immediate gratification. So when you start to stand back and see your predicament and see what you're doing, there is a way from a spiritual perspective in which you begin with that slight bit of awareness to extricate yourself from the chain of reactivity that we're talking about. The chain of reactivity that goes from I'm feeling this hunger, and then I'll go for the gratification, and then we're coming down, and then oh shit, and then I should have done it the other way, and then I'm bad, and there's a whole chain of thoughts that go on. Every one of those is just keeping the whole process going. And as you develop the spaciousness, you start to look at where you can intervene in the process of the sequence that goes on. As the awareness gets deeper, you intervene at different places in the sequence. For example, for me, I've had strong addictions to food, so that when I am feeling unloved, I'll eat, and I'll get fat, so habit, and then I'll hate myself, loathing, because of my body and so on, and I'll go through it. Now, I understand the psychodynamics of that at one level, but let's take it from this point of view of mind. The first place I began to intervene was when Manindra what you see is just old karma running off. And I began to break in at the point that after I had eaten too much to reduce my anxiety because my mother fed me food when I was upset, I learned that pattern and all that stuff. Instead of going into I'm no good and revulsion and all the sequence, I break the chain at that point, and then I just go back into my spiritual practices. Instead of carrying out the whole sequence, I shortcut there. As the witness gets stronger, you start to go back in the chain further and further until as the separateness is starting to come and the feeling of hunger, and as you're about to eat, you start to notice the fact that you're about to do that, and your mind anticipates the whole sequence, and you, in a sense, begin to see the emptiness of the form you're about to take. Now, if you try to stop it too soon using your mind to stop it, there's a residual backlash from it. So one develops a lot of patience and a lot of gentleness with oneself. And generally, when people come to me with addictions, I'm inclined to say, stop doing spiritual practices. Start doing studies that will allow you to see yourself in a new way, that will allow you to understand what that hunger is you're feeding in a new way, to just get a little different perspective on it. Don't worry about the addiction. It will fall away. It will fall away. And when you do it again, just notice it. And the line I always use, how poignant I am. How poignant the human condition. I'm so gentle with myself. And what I have watched is the patterns of my obsessions and addictions have changed over time. There's no doubt about it. Yet I didn't deal with them directly head-on for the most part. Because what you see is, and this is something that I'm sure I create a lot of waves in many people, including people that I love very dearly, that I'm close to. I see that a lot of the programs to deal with addiction end up creating a new addiction to being not addicted that is as bad as the addiction itself. I mean, when you meet somebody that says, I haven't smoked in 3 years, 2 months, 10 days, and 4 hours, you realize that their mind is as stuck as their mind was stuck in smoking. Maybe they won't die of cancer, but they'll probably die of uptightness. I'm being a little facetious, but in general I'm saying that dealing with things which you're caught in, the minute you start to stop them, you invest them in a way. And so my suggestion is that you just keep cultivating the practices. And when I began to sit in meditation and watch the sequence of my behavior, I saw that all my recriminations didn't help anything particularly. They weren't really functional, except trying to make me feel comfortable with myself. And the better thing would be, the minute I notice that I've lost it, or I've gotten caught, or I'm stuck, just start to do something. Just do a mind trip. Sing a song. And I'll start driving to town, and I'm going to give a lecture. And I start to get uptight. Like, oh my God, do I know what I'm talking about? And it's a neurotic pattern. I know it from years back. I can give you a whole psychodynamic storyline about what that's about. I look at it and I think, there it is. At that moment, I start Sri Guru Charana Saro Jari Jani Jamanu Mukuru Sudari Bhavanora Gumara Bina Majasu Jod, and 6 minutes later, I'm in a different space than I was before. Now, you could say from a psychological, that's denial, and you should work with that. But the fact is that thus far, what's happening is it's getting less and less, and I'm able to hang in here now with very little of that old anxiety that used to be crippling. And I just flip gears immediately, because the minute you get lost in identification with your personality to the exclusion of identification with your soul, you've lost it. And there are 1,000 times each day you lose it. And if you get caught in your soul to the exclusion of your personality, you lost it equally as much.